Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by SonicWeb Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? SonicWeb Studios is the answer. SonicWeb Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. SonicWeb Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those you love will be the first to go missing. It's available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews and even loved and enjoyed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassie, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com and over 30 podcast platforms, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, Anchor FM, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Audible, Apple Music. Coming soon to HamiltonRadio.net, Diamonds FM, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies. Makes great gifts 24/7. Family, friends, and loved ones. Go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia for great books like Missing, Once, and Wrinkles. Also T-shirts, pop sockets, hoodies, phone cases, and more. Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Check it out today. Also support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, themikewagnershow.com. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com at the Mike Wagner Show. Make sure you do so today. We're here with a terrific gentleman who's an author, screenwriter, artist, and a horseman who was born in Chicago, now based in Los Angeles with his own production company, DiPego Now Entertainment. We'll talk about that. He's also appeared in 1915 House, also Phenomenon, Goes to New Orleans, and more. And he's got a new book, which is referred to as a groundbreaking modern-day adult film fantasy novel set in a contemporary world where a spouse disappears, kids are afraid, curses are cast, and set in mythical underbelly in Los Angeles. And what does he have to do to recover? We'll find out about that. Live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plus Studios in beautiful downtown Los Angeles, the amazing author of the new book, Wrongside of Working Man, author, screenwriter, artist, and horseman, the multi-talented Justin DiPego. Justin, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today. Okay. Can you hear Justin? Justin?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah, I think you might have hit the wrong button, but just want to say thanks for joining us today, Justin DiPego.
Yes, it's great to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, it's great to have you on board as well, too. So you're an author, screenwriter, artist, and horseman. You're born in Chicago. You're based in Los Angeles with your own production company. You appeared in 1915, also 1915 House, also Phenomenon, Goes to New Orleans, and more. You have a new book that's referred to as a groundbreaking contemporary modern-day adult film fantasy novel set in a contemporary world where a spouse disappears, kids are afraid, curses cast, and set in the mythical underbelly in Los Angeles, called Wrongside of a Working Man. Of course, it's all about a working man where things go wrong. We'll talk about that. And before getting to all that, Justin, tell us how you first got started.
As a writer? Oh, well, okay. So
actually just go way back, go in the Wayback Machine.
Okay, Wayback Machine. It's actually kind of the same story because my parents, my dad is still a writer. He's 80 something years old and he's still writing. My mother has passed away, but she was a writer. My brother is a writer. I'm a writer. So it's all, it's deeply ingrained in the blood, right? So I wrote my first. I started writing stories when I was, as soon as I could write. I was a little kid and I was making up stories and building little contraptions and stuff. I was a very creative kid, and it just kind of went from there. I've always been listening to the way people talk and trying to capture that, little phrases that I thought was interesting and things like that, and then using that to tell the stories that I would tell. Since I was little.
Interesting. And what was it one precise moment that simply influenced you into what you're doing for the rest of your career?
Well, most recently, you mentioned 1915 House, which is a movie that I made. I have a YouTube channel where I'm mostly fixing up this house where I live now. It's the house was built in 1915,
Hmm.
and I made a bunch of videos where I'm fixing up the house. But so I ended up with hours of video, and it's on the YouTube channel and people are watching the videos. But then I was like, well, what am I going to do with all these videos? And so I took all the raw footage that I had and I re-edited it into a ghost story.
Oh, wow.
So instead of it being about me fixing up this 100-year-old house, it became about a guy who happened to be me fixing up a house that turns out to be haunted. And so in the beginning, the videos are pretty much the same as they were originally, except that you can see some kind of weird things happening in the background. And then as it progresses, it becomes more and more and more weird, and the ghosts become more aggressive. And then finally, I did actually have to shoot new material. I turned my whole backyard into a movie studio with a green screen and everything. And I created this whole scenario where I had to fight these ghosts.
Wow.
So I edited the movie all together. And I was like, okay, now what am I going to do with it? Just for the fun of it, I sent it to some film festival contest. And they rejected it.
Oh.
Right. So in the rejection email, it said that it was too long to be considered a short film, and I needed to resubmit it as a feature. And I was like, are you telling me that I accidentally, for no money, all by myself, made a feature film? And so I resubmitted it as a feature. It was accepted into the festival. I ended up winning some awards. I went on the festival. This was, I shot everything starting in 2015. By now we're talking about like 2017 or so. So it does the festival circuit for that year. I win some more awards, and I'm getting some attention for it. And I thought, I spent my entire career as a writer working for other people. And here I made this movie all by myself by accident. What if I start doing that on purpose? So that's where DiPego Now Entertainment came from. I decided, okay, I'm not going to, well, believe me, if someone came to me and wanted to hire me as a writer, I probably wouldn't say no, but I'm not going to just be a writer for hire anymore. I'm going to be my own production company. I'm going to write, produce, direct, and gather around me the people who also have stories to tell, and get some stuff made. Now, if you've been paying attention to the timing of this all happened right before the pandemic. So that grinds my gears to a stop a little bit, but when we're up and running, we have this book coming out. We have a couple of features in development, and I'm working on the next book in this series. So yeah, so we're up and running.
I was going to ask you about 1915 House as well, too, before we talk about your book and other practice as well, too. You talked about having ghosts in there, the spirits getting weirder and weirder. Yeah. Can you describe or recall what ghosts were there? It's like, can you describe, or were like, or like, were they wearing, what were they saying and everything like that? And of course, the paranormal has been a really big topic as well. So it's like, what were they saying? What were they conversing? What were they wearing? And, what were they exactly doing at the time?
Yeah, well, in 1915 House, the ghosts are very I'm going to say ethereal. They don't really have like a human kind of form. They appear as mist, or as like puffs of ether in a way, until finally, well, actually this right behind me is the head of the spirit that I finally have to fight in the end. Let me.
Well, could you bring it over and show it to everybody? That looks really interesting. I'm trying to,
this was the head from the special effect of the creature that I have to battle at the end.
Wow. Okay.
So
And what did you make that out of, by the way?
this is baling wire and that like heavy duty shrink wrap that comes on like shipping pallets.
Hmm.
And a little welded frame. I that's one of the things I love. I love creating sort of practical, low budget special effects. So that's what this fellow was.
Wow, that's really interesting too. And also too that also I was going to ask you about a couple of films as well too, since we're on that subject. You also did Phenomenon, Ghost of New Orleans, and you also were in like Murder She Wrote, and also Point of Seduction, everything, and maybe just a bit more of some of the films you've been in, maybe some guest appearances.
Well, I mean, as an actor, I when I was younger, I mean, we're going back to the 80s and 90s here, where I was pursuing acting, and that's when I did Murder She Wrote and The Death of the Incredible Hulk, and I don't know, a couple of other guest spots and commercials and things like that. Um, uh, yeah, I mean, that was a it was a it was an interesting part of my life that as I got older, I really do enjoy acting, but I really did not enjoy the pursuit of acting. And so I was always a writer, and so the writing became more and more my focus as I got older.
Hmm, that's really interesting. Who are some of your favorite authors and writers growing up?
Well, I was a voracious reader. I mean, like my whole library behind me, everything from sort of here on out that way is fiction and literature, and everything this way is reference books and history and stuff like that. I loved reading Raymond Chandler. He's a huge influence on me. Um, and then all Tolkien and Robert E. Howard, the the Conan stories I was super into.
Oh, I remember
Um,
Conan. Boy, that's like a flashback. I think we had to read that, the Conan stories. Oh my
oh
God.
yeah, and then actually reading The Hobbit. I remember reading. I was in school. I read The Hobbit in the seventh grade, and that was such a huge sort of even by that time I was already reading and writing and paying attention, for instance, to my dad and his career because, like I said, he's a writer. Um, but when I read The Hobbit, it really kind of blew my mind. The voice of the narrator really blew my mind, and that kind of storytelling was sort of elevated in a way to me that really changed the way I thought about writing. So that was a big one for me.
What was your favorite section in The Hobbit, or like favorite chapter, book, characters, or anything like that? What were
I don't
some of your
know.
favorites in The Hobbit?
Yeah, I mean, I can point to the moment that blew my mind. I don't know if this is like the best moment in the book or anything like that, but there's Bilbo is in the cave meeting Gollum.
Gollum. Yes, I remember.
Yes,
Precious. Yes, I remember.
exactly.
Precious.
And in the midst of whatever was happening, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something like um, the description was something like it was darker. It was it was so dark that Bilbo couldn't see a thing, and if you were there you wouldn't be able to see a thing either, something
Mm,
like that. And the point is that the narrator suddenly jumped out and was addressing me
mm,
as the reader.
wow.
Said that you wouldn't be able to see, something like that. And I was like, oh wow, the narrator is a character. There's some person telling me this story. The narrator isn't just a generic words on the page. There's actually a person who is the storyteller who's telling this story. And that just opened my mind in a way that ever since then it made me very aware, whether I'm writing or I'm reading, of who the narrator is. And also it instilled in me a love for the unreliable narrator. So that when somebody is telling you a story, that means that they're telling it from their own perspective. So it's not necessarily some kind of omnipotent truth. It's the truth through the eyes of the narrator. And that narrator may intentionally be misleading you, or maybe not intentionally, but their own biases are coming to the story regardless of their intent. So that was like a huge revelation to me.
That's really interesting. Also, too, I was thinking about the reliable and unreliable narrator, and I'm glad you pointed that out. And what are some other favorite books you enjoyed reading growing up?
Well, I mentioned Raymond Chandler. I think I've read everything he's written, and that was another thing where it's the books. I mean, they're hard-boiled detective stories, but they're really not. I mean, they are, but Chandler, he's really writing about is the human condition, and Philip Marlowe as the character is this grand observer. He's just watching what's going on around him and inserting little commentaries in the midst of what is a hard-boiled detective story. And that was also very influential to me. My book now, Wrongside of a Working Man, is a fantasy adventure. It's an action piece. It's it's an exciting, rousing kind of thing. But it is also underneath that a little sort of like analysis of our society, of our place in the world, of how people interact with each other, of the human condition. So, but I didn't want to write a book about the human condition. I wanted to write an adventure. I wanted to write an exciting, entertaining story, something that I would enjoy reading, but that also had an underlying thing going on.
And of course, speaking of underlying, it's got some underlying tones to it. It also got 10 Impossible Tasks. We'll talk more about the book. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international war-winning author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is an illusion and those you love will be the first to go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews and even 11 enjoys by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today of Furgo's Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com on over 30 podcast platforms. Coming soon to hamiltonradio.net, Diamonds FM, and more. Take The Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to The Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Follow The Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. For great gift ideas and more, go to amazon.com and check out The Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to amazon.com/me and Molson-Zia for great books, merchandise, and more. Amazon.com/me and Molson-Zia. Check it out today. Also support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, themikewagnershow.com. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com at the Mike Wagner Show. Make sure you do so today. We're here with author, screenwriter, artist, horseman, born in Chicago and now based in LA, Justin DiPego of Wrongside, Working Man, the Mike Wagner Show. And before we talk about your book as well, too, and you've been a horseman for quite some time. And tell us all about that part.
Well, that also initially came from my dad. My dad was, I was born in Chicago, but we moved out to Los Angeles when I was a little kid for my dad's career. And I mean, a little, like I was like 2. And part of coming out to this part of the world is there's, it's a very, especially the edges of LA, there are a lot of horses. It's a very rural town, even though it's a big city. there's horses right in the middle of the city, in the Santa Monica Mountains, and then all the way around in the valleys and stuff. And my dad was he was excited by that, and so he started getting into horses, and I followed along from the time I was like 3 years old, and ended up going to like cattle ranch in Arizona instead of going to summer camp, for instance.
Wow.
And I just really took to it. And so later on, when I was a young writer trying to make my way in the world, and I was looking for what I could do as a day job, I knew I didn't want to do. I wasn't going to be a waiter or something like that, because I'm not a people person, right? I don't have
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to have the temperament to be good at that. So I was like, well, what skills do I have? And the two skills that I had were construction, which plays into working man, and horses. And so that was my bread and butter for years when I wasn't making money as a writer or as an actor. So I was training horses, and I was teaching lessons, and I was working at like dude ranch kind of places, taking people out on trail rides, and working as a trail guide, and then just general ranch hand kind of work. So
Interesting. And what breeds of horses were you guys raising?
Well, my own horse, who unfortunately I no longer have, but he was a Mustang, and he and I were together for 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and so yeah, he was a Mustang who came out of Idaho, which means he was a big burly mountain horse, as opposed to the sort of rangy, skinny desert Mustangs that you get down in like in Arizona and places like that. Anyway, so yeah, he was, but then other than him, all kinds of horses a lot of Arabs. Arabs are hugely popular in the LA area because they're sort of like the Porsche of horses. But also thoroughbreds and standard breds, quarter horses, kind of across the board. Appaloosa, yeah.
Mhm. What's your favorite breed of horse, and what do you consider the easiest and the most difficult?
Well, I love the Mustangs. My own horse was a Mustang, and then the other Mustangs that I've dealt with, they're a challenge, and they're never easy, but I love the Mustangs. A good quiet quarter horse is great to be around, who is just bomb proof and kid friendly. And slicker broke is a term where if it starts to rain and you need to pull your slicker off your saddle, that can really make a horse panic. So if your horse is slicker broke, that's great, because then when it starts to rain, you can keep yourself dry without getting bucked off.
Huh.
So yeah.
That's really interesting. And also, going from horses to construction to the book and everything else, and also with your book as well too. That you also stated that it's a first groundbreaking modern day adult film and everything. And with you being a working man, and how'd you come up with the title "Wrongside of a Working Man"?
Well, I was working. I was doing construction, and it was just one of those things where it's like it's hard work, and it's easy when you're doing that kind of work, especially because for most of my career in that world, I was not on a crew. I was working as a handyman or as an installer or something like that. So I was not in a big work crew. I was just by myself, me and my truck, going around doing from house to house or business to business. And it's easy to become invisible when you're doing that kind of work. People will forget that you're there, and when you're invisible, it's easy, then people can be rude to you, or people can be hurtful in ways that they wouldn't if they weren't thinking of you, if they were thinking of you as a person instead of just as a installer. In my case, I was installing skylights. So I would show up at someone's house and I would just be installing a skylight. And then, especially now, I mean, this was years ago, but now, like, we're all in our home offices, and if an electrician or a plumber has to come to your home, you could just be sitting there in your home office for hours, and this person is working in your home, and you can kind of forget that they're there, forget that they're a person. And that sense of being a sort of unperson made me feel like I was on the wrong side
Okay, that's where it
of
comes from.
humanity in a way. And then it has multiple meanings, right? It's like, you don't want to cross, if you don't want to cross somebody, you don't want to be on their wrong side,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
But Alex, the hero of our story, he also ends up, he has a curse on him, so he's on the wrong side. But the curse also affects his family, his wife and daughters. Um, so they're on his wrong side. And so it has multiple meanings that aren't perfectly explicitly defined as you read the book, but as you read the book, you'll see all the different ways that either he is on the wrong side or people are on the wrong side of him. Um, or yeah, and so as it progresses, it's all about getting everybody to be on the right side.
Or on the same page too, as
Yeah,
people say,
exactly.
try to get the same page. Now, what kind of curse has been placed on the guy? What kind of curse has been on Alex for quite some time? And when did it start, the curse?
Well, that's kind of, it's kind of a mystery. So I don't want to give too much away, but the way that it manifests is as this terrible chronic pain that he develops in his neck and shoulder.
Ooh.
And as the pain sets in, um, then his temper becomes terrible, and he has a short fuse, and that's what's affecting his family. He eventually lashes out and breaks a mirror, and that's a bridge too far for his wife, Dara. She takes their daughters and leaves him, and now he has to figure out what's wrong with him. Up until this point, he's been a good, caring, loving father and husband, not a violent guy. But now once the pain is set in, these new troubles are manifest, and so he needs to figure out why. And he ends up meeting this mystic kind of character in a botanica in East LA, Mexican American um, mystic, who identifies that there's this curse on him, and that in order to lift the curse, he has to perform these 10 tasks across the city of LA.
Oh, wow.
And essentially, Alex, as he's informed, is out of balance. That's sort of the root of his curse. And these other 10 places across the city are also out of balance in a sort of metaphysical way. And so he has to go and right those wrongs. Basically, what's happened is that that's kind of his job as an electrician, going around the city and fixing things. And then once this curse has set in, he has to take the same sort of schedule of his life, going around the city fixing things, but instead of just being an electrician, he has to be a sort of mythic hero,
Hmm.
fixing these other things that are increasingly bizarre and out of balance.
And you talk about the 10 impossible tasks that he has to do between him and get a new start or total destruction. What are a few of the impossible tasks that he has to do? It doesn't have to be all 10 of them. It can be like, just a couple, fewer,
Sure.
just to give everybody an idea.
Well, so basically, I took as my inspiration the 12 labors of Hercules. And so a lot of the tasks are loosely based on those labors. So
Oh, wow.
there, in reality, there are mountain lions here in like Griffith Park and Santa Monica Mountains, and so he has to fight a mountain lion. He has to confront there are wild parrots that 30 or 40 years ago escaped from a pet store, and now there's flocks
Oh
of
my
wild parrots
gosh.
all over the city. And so he has to confront these wild parrots. That's early in the story, because as the myths progress, the his challenges become greater and greater. Um, he has to rescue a girl from the twin towers and figure out what that even really means. And so each place that he goes, there's a fight to be fought or a battle to be won. There's some kind of problem solving that he needs to figure out in order to get through this, which will then lead him to his next challenge.
You talked about heroes as well too. You mentioned Hercules, based
Mm.
on the way he has to do in task. What are some of the other heroes are being mentioned or loosely mentioned or referred to? Hercules is one, and how about some other heroes, like say from ancient, today, and everything's like? Who are some other ones, other heroes that get influence in the story?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of Alex's journey, is discovering that he's one of a like the him being out of balance, and these places in the world being out of balance is a cyclical thing in the universe that require a hero to come along and solve those cyclical problems. And so characters like Hercules, Gilgamesh, King Arthur, um, uh, Roland. These are all heroes who come along through history. And unfortunately, from where I'm sitting, excuse me, we know the names of all these heroes from Europe. But these traditions also exist in Mesoamerica and Asia and Africa, everywhere else in the world. Um, there are these heroes who have to cyclically right these wrongs. There's a fantastic one from Nigeria, and I'm forgetting her name, but she's tasked with these adventures that she has to go on in order to regain her ability. Because she sort of has superpowers. She can talk to animals, but she cannot have a child.
Oh wow.
And so in order to regain her ability to have the child, she has to go on all these quests and adventures. And excuse me, finally she can't. In the end, she fails,
Ooh.
but she becomes, in our in our sort of Western terminology, the patron goddess or patron saint of
Patron saint. Okay.
women in childbirth.
Hmm.
And so that's like her trade-off. And so she isn't able to lift her curse per se, but she is able to change her life and change the balance in a way that is, that allows things to move forward. And I love that. I wish I could remember her name, because it's like we're not taught these things. We're
Hmm.
taught the Western myths, the Greeks, the Romans, Arthur, and if you're lucky, Gilgamesh. Um, but anyways, yeah. So yeah, there's all kinds of heroes throughout history, and Alex is sort of the inheritor of that tradition.
And of course, you talk about heroes from like every section it is, like the Renaissance, and also like with Greek mythology and everything else. What is your
Yes.
favorite period when it comes to like with heroes, the literature, and everything like that? What is like your most favorite one of all?
Well, I am half Greek and half Italian.
Okay.
So the Greek and Roman myths are like deeply ingrained. Like from the time that I was a kid, I was reading, like, a lot of these books here are mythology books,
Mm-hmm.
specifically Greek and Roman. I lean towards the Greeks more than the Romans when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, Heracles, Perseus, those stories are fundamental to sort of my storytelling, and then also to the Western storytelling tradition. So yeah, I really love those Greek myths.
And what's your favorite Greek character?
Well, it's hard to pick a favorite, but I'm gonna have to go with Heracles. I mean, he's who I based Alex on, and I love how conflicted his story is. It's, I mean, it doesn't age well in terms of, I mean, the stories from back then are deeply misogynist and are hugely problematic. And one of the things that I wanted to do with my story is take that thing, and instead of like trying to retell an ancient story in a way that does age well in our modern time, I didn't want it to set it in ancient Greece and sort of redeem Heracles. Instead, I wanted to set it now and tell that story in a different way. I mean, if you read into the myths, Heracles suffers from probably some kind of mental illness, whether it's schizophrenia or who knows what. Undiagnosable, because it's a myth and it's thousands of years ago. But I mean, he murders his wife and children because he believes he's been caused by a vengeful god to think that they are monsters. Well, I mean, if you take the mythology out of that and just look at it in terms of reality, that terrifyingly really does happen in real life. And so to take a story like that and tell it in real terms was attractive to me.
That is really interesting. I like how I did a nice spin on Hercules as well, too, having it in Los Angeles. They can use a Hercules right now. So
yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
definitely.
And where can we find Wrongside of a Working Man at, Justin?
Well, it's ebook, paperback, hardcover on Amazon, and then also the audiobook is underway right now. It's in the hands of my my narrator. So the audiobook will be ready later in the summer.
Okay. We're certainly looking forward to it. What's coming up for Justin DiPego? We'll find out just 1 minute. You listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Also brought to you by our official sponsor, the Mike Wagner Show, international war-winning author Mia Molson's The Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We'll be back with awesome Justin DiPego of Wrong Side of a Working Man after this time out. We're back with author Justin DiPego on the Mike Wagner Show, the author of Wrongside of a Working Man, and really got a great story about the book and his career and everything else. And what else can we expect from you in 2022 and beyond, Justin?
Well, I'm working on the next book in the Working Man series. It's going to be at least a trilogy. So that I'm gathering my notes and thoughts on that. And then I mentioned earlier, I have a couple of features in development right now. So one, I've already, I've got a cast together. We're getting ready to make that. Another is a sequel to 1915 House.
Wow.
So that one, we'll see. Those two are in a race to see which one actually ends up in the can first. But those three things, the next book and those two projects, the 1915 House sequel and then this murder mystery movie, those are next on my docket.
Oh, that's going to be so interesting, and certainly looking forward to it. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Ooh, all right. Well, I mentioned that that my father is a screenwriter. So Gerald DiPego, he's had a long career starting in the 70s and he's still working now. I absolutely have to say that he was a huge influence and mentor. And I mentioned my mother was also a writer. So she was a more, she was a poet and and she did a lot of short stories and magazine writing. From both of them, I learned different things. My dad, obviously, like as a professional writer, was very, he treated writing like a job. Got up every morning, he wrote for 5 hours, then he would break for lunch, then he would review what he wrote, and it was like very systematic. And when I was a young writer, like fresh out of college and wanting to do my own thing, I was like, that's so boring, and it's so it's too much like a job, and I wanted everything, like I was waiting for the muse, and I would wait until midnight, and I would light a candle, and I would drink a glass of wine while I was writing, and I wanted to have this bohemian kind of approach, which you can do, that totally works, but not, in my opinion. I'm sure it works for some people. I was not able to do that and sustain writing as a career. And so I learned a very important lesson from my dad of treating writing like a job, and this sort of romantic notion of this bohemian writer, I feel like is probably, is kind of a myth. Like Hemingway, for instance, has the reputation of being this rabble rouser, getting in bar fights and drinking and stuff like that. And all that stuff was true. But he would wake up every morning before dawn and write sober for like 5 hours.
Wow.
And then he would start drinking and would go fishing, or would go hunting, or would get in a bar fight, or go sailing, or whatever. And then he would do all those stories that we've heard about him. But as a writer, that was his career, and he was extremely diligent and serious about it. And so that was a very important lesson for me to learn as a writer coming up.
That's really interesting. I'm glad you mentioned about the wine. I'll have to cancel my order and stick to coffee. So,
Well, I do still drink a glass of wine from time to time, but not while I'm writing.
I know I'm joking, but
yeah.
So, and what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
As a writer, that I would be that, and also that writing is not a desk job. I mean, obviously the physical act of writing, you're going to be sitting at your desk or wherever you're comfortable, wherever you have space to do that, at a Starbucks, for instance. But that is just the end result of all of the other, you need to be out in the world. You need to have life experiences. You need to talk to people. If you have the ability and the opportunity, you need to travel. You need to experience as much as you can, because all of that is writing. And I think that, to me, would be my greatest advice to anyone that's interested in becoming a writer.
And certainly indeed too. Well, that's really good as well. Once again, with author Justin DiPego of Wrongside, a working man on the Mike Wagner Show. Justin, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. Make sure you keep us up to date. Keep in touch. We'd love to have you back. Once again, tell us about your upcoming projects. What's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your book?
Yeah, well, I'm on all the various social medias as Justin DiPego. Or Justin _DiPego, Instagram, Twitter, mostly those. That's where I'm mostly on social media. And then you can go to DiPegoNow.com, where you'll find all of my socials, and you'll find what I'm working on. You'll find links to where you can buy my books or my merch. And then Amazon. Go to Amazon, search for my name, search for Wrongside of a Working Man. And this is an ARC, so it has this little band on it. But eventually you'll get a real copy, and yeah, go get the book from Amazon, or get the audiobook in a little while.
We certainly do so. Once again, Justin, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to having you again soon. Make sure you keep us up to date. Keep in touch. We'll have you back. We wish you all the best. You've got a great future ahead of you.
Thank you very much. It's been great to be here.